Hey everybody, welcome back. It is another week and I want to start on a darker note and then we will find a way later in today's show to do something more fun as we try to normally, but there's just nothing fun about this. I will encourage you, if you're watching on YouTube, to watch this full segment in particular because I'm going to chat with someone who we already did in the interview and it's just a really profound conversation that I think is really relevant to what we're talking about here. So if you've been keeping up with the news at all, and I have to be transparent with you, waking up today, knowing that we're going to do a show and trying to decide, like, what is it that I want to say was difficult because I'm a little bit numb and speechless right now on a few different elements. Tragic things happen, and it's not like I'm not used to, in a context where we discuss news, that there's going to be tragic news, but it's more that because we're focused on the political angle of things, that watching the political reaction once again to tragic events is so disheartening. And I hold on to the hope of the interactions I have with all of you, and I'm about to talk with Hunter, the conversation that we had, and I know that there are good-hearted people, but man, sometimes the internet can obscure that. So there were a bunch of emergencies still ongoing right now over the weekend. You had a mass shooting at Brown University. The shooter, as of when we're recording this, is still at large. You had the horrific mass shooting in Australia. You have troops, U.S. troops in Syria being killed. And then most recently, Rob Reiner, the iconic director and actor, and his wife being murdered in their home. And it's really early, so I won't tell you like what the suspect is or anything because I just want to let that pan out. So often we've now watched this, even with Trump getting things wrong about the Brown University shooting. Information gets thrown out all over the place before they're confirmed, so I just want to wait on that. But regardless, Rob Reiner was murdered and his wife, and that kind of ended a really violent weekend of news and real human suffering. And so then as we don't just do like a straight news show, and it's a lot about the political conversation, we wade into those waters, it only gets more disheartening. And I ended in talking about Rob Reiner, who you can see here in an interview with Piers Morgan. Again, I've seen him in shows that I've liked, and I'm sure many of you have watched his movies, very iconic string of movies. And what do you do in a moment like this, where you just have a weekend of just so much suffering right in your face? Often, in the political context, we'd look to our leaders. And in the case of the United States, Trump is our president. And his reactions, honestly, on numerous things, getting things wrong. And then I saw him at a Christmas event or something, like trying to pay or give his condolences. It just felt really empty in general. But then he did specifically send out a post about Rob Reiner that was just the worst of what a political leader can be. And so that to me represents a real moral crisis that we're in as a country, where even someone at the very top can't channel moral clarity. And that's scary. That's really, really scary, where it seems like, despite this not appearing to be a political attack against Reiner, Trump's response was to attack him because of Reiner's politics being anti-Trump. And just something, we've gone through this now over the last few months and years. Every time, though, it hits the same, just the real grim feeling. So, I think the thing debuted over the weekend too, but Erika Kirk had an interview, a town hall on CBS. It was widely publicized and was really being pushed out there. And one of the people who got to ask Erika Kirk a question, Hunter Kozak, was the person who was debating Charlie Kirk when he was assassinated. And Hunter asked Erika if we're serious about healing wounds politically, if we're serious about any lowering of the temperature or de-escalation, doesn't that require us demanding it of our president? And I'm going to show you her response, and then I'm going to chat with Hunter about that experience and the moment that we're in. And then you'll see in that conversation what Trump posted about Rob Reiner that was just horrific. And again, a crisis of morality. So here's the clip, and then do stick around. Hunter and I have a wide-ranging conversation about this moment.
Erika, as you know, the last person that Charlie ever spoke to was a Utah Valley student named Hunter Kozak. He was asking Charlie a question that day when he was shot, and he's here tonight, and he wants to ask you a question.
Hi there. Erika, I want to tell you how much I appreciate your calls for peace and unity, and I'm likewise horrified by the people in my so-called camp who were cheering about Charlie's murder. I believe that they stoke the flames of violence. But even worse is when powerful, influential people on either side of the aisle stoke the flames. When they do it, the flames can become an inferno. And this leads me to Donald Trump, the most powerful and influential person on earth, who has more responsibility than anyone else to put the flames out. Just last month, President Trump called on 6 Democratic lawmakers to be tried for sedition, which he clarified was punishable by death. He then reposted a simple message: hang them. I think that you've been making strides to bring peace to our country, and that turning point has been asking Democrats to decry the individuals who cheer for violence. I have and will continue to decry them. But any good faith effort to stop political violence must hold both parties to the same standard and expectation. So in that spirit, will you condemn the violent rhetoric of Donald Trump, the most powerful and influential person on earth?
I appreciate your question. You know my heart. Why would I ever say, yes, go murder people? This is so much deeper than just one. I understand your sentiment. I do. But this is also so much deeper than just one person. This starts at the home, okay? This starts with family. This starts with a seed that grows and grows. You can choose to have evil in your heart, or you can choose to have light. What you consume and what you absorb from the outside world will manifest itself. No, I will never agree with political violence. My husband is a victim of it. I'm a victim of it. But what I'm trying to say here is that we can blame everyone else. We have to look in the mirror. When you become a father, when you become a mother, how are you raising your kids? Are you taking responsibility, or are you giving them a device and saying, go down that rabbit hole? I'm trying to go to Pilates class. You can just sit in the corner and look at your iPad or look at your phone and go down that rabbit hole and see what you can learn from that instead of being a parent. So my call to action from that is, parents, step up. Do you want your kid to be a thought leader or an assassin? That's where we're at.
Do you think our political leaders have a responsibility to turn the temperature down right now?
Well, I think everyone has a responsibility to do that, and I'm doing my part. I'm not in control of other people.
And I'm now joined by who you just saw in that clip asking Erika the question that he did. Hunter Kozak, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.
It was such a powerful question, and something that I've tried to properly articulate over and over again. And the fact that you were able to do it so succinctly in that environment was so impressive to me. And that's why I reached out and want to dive into it more, because as we examine this really frightening environment of political violence, and then of the aftermath of political violence, time and time again being even more inflammatory as opposed to anyone taking steps to reduce the likelihood of events like this, one of the things you have to start calibrating for is who do we hold to a higher standard? And I'm absolutely passionate about calling out people whenever I see it who are being inappropriate or inflammatory, even if it's a random TikToker, even if they identify as on my side in the wake of something like a political assassination. And it's perfectly reasonable to say, if we're actually going to make progress on this, we definitely at least need the leaders at the highest positions of power to be on board with doing that work. And so if anyone, Erika or anyone on the quote unquote MAGA side, is interested in that goal, and I hope that they are, don't we have to acknowledge the way the president of the United States doesn't seem very interested in lowering the temperature, to use the common phrase? And we just saw an example of this that we'll get to in a second with Trump's reaction to Rob Reiner. But I want to get your thoughts on the answer that she provided to your question, kind of not really wanting to address Trump specifically, who, as you mentioned, was just out there calling for or justifying the murder of Democrats because of the statement they issued about service members following the law. How do you feel about that answer, Hunter?
Yeah, I mean, there's two things that are pretty glaring about the answer to me. And the first is, I mean, her immediate response is, I would never say, yes, go murder people, which to me feels a little bit disingenuous. Like, I don't think that that's what I'm asking her to not do. I'm asking her to not stand behind a leader who repeatedly calls for violence, not for herself to endorse violence. Obviously she never has. But the second thing is that she brought it to the family really quickly. And, you know, Erika doesn't know me. I don't know Erika, so it's fine she doesn't know this. But I do have two kids of my own. And I really do hope that I'm teaching them love and how to, like, right now we're working on sharing, right? Because the older one is doesn't really know how to play with his toys. But like, I do think that I'm trying to invoke love to my kids, but I also have to send them out into the world. And when they look at me and they look at the things that I fought for, or the things I cared about, I really hope that they don't see me consistently allowing this type of conversation to occur.
Yeah. Now, I referenced that it's so fascinating that you had specifically name-checked Trump. And obviously, because of her political affiliation, I'm sure in her heart she believes she's genuine about wanting to reduce our violent political culture. But her loyalty to Trump and her political affiliation with him is going to make her really nervous to actually go, yeah, you're right, that's completely inappropriate what he says. That does further inflame tensions, and him as the president has a whole heck of a lot more responsibility than random people being disgusting on TikTok. And just shortly after you asked that question, in the wake of Rob Reiner and his wife being murdered, you have Trump sending out this post, quote, "A very sad thing happened last night in Hollywood. Rob Reiner, a tortured and struggling but once very talented movie director and comedy star, has passed away together with his wife, Michelle, reportedly due to the anger he caused others through his massive, unyielding, and incurable affliction with a mind-crippling disease known as Trump derangement syndrome, sometimes referred to as TDS. He was known to have driven people crazy by his raging obsession of President Donald J. Trump, with his obvious paranoia reaching new heights as the Trump administration surpassed all goals and expectations of greatness, and with the golden age of America upon us, perhaps like never before, may Rob and Michelle rest in peace." And it's like, obviously, from what we understand, this is really early in the murder of Reiner and his wife, but it doesn't seem to be an act of political violence. But still, just because of Reiner's political leanings, Trump is very obviously making light of or mocking what happened. And that is extremely powerful given who he is compared to some of the examples I see on some of the other examples I'll see that'll just be random people, which still matters, but it's not quite the same as the president. And I just can't square in my head, Hunter, how a lot of people who I've talked to directly in the wake of Kirk being murdered will seemingly really believe that they don't want this culture, that they don't want this type of normalization of violence and celebrating it if it's someone you don't like, but then can't get themselves to identify Trump as a contributing factor to our current tension.
Right. Well, the first thing that I want to mention is that it's not some weird coincidence that Trump is advocating for violence today while we're talking about my question, which was about Trump advocating for violence, even though it was before, obviously, Rob Reiner died. He does this every day. He just flatly does this every day. And this is the example that we have today. And I had a different example last month, and I had a different example from 4 years ago. In fact, the question kind of had to, the CBS didn't really ask me to edit my question, but when I first submitted it, it was way too long because I had so much, I felt like I had so much to say. So they were like, hey, we're not going to tell you what to cut, but you're going to need to cut. And something that I hit kind of hard in my original question when I was talking about it, that I eventually realized there was a better example for, was Paul Pelosi. I don't know, maybe 8 years ago, maybe I don't remember exactly when he got attacked.
I think just a few, yeah, just like 3.
Oh, I'm way off. Yeah. But regardless, Charlie was finding it funny. They were saying we should bail out the attacker. The attacker was a MAGA supporter. Donald Trump was making fun of it. And also I show this similarity. I showed the similarity between Halloween costumes because people were pretty rightfully aggravated or upset or horrified when people on our side were dressing up as Halloween costumes for Charlie Kirk. And I totally understand that. But also Donald J. Trump Jr., he made this big tweet about how funny it would be to go as he's like, here's my Halloween costume this year. And it was a picture of underwear and a hammer. And I'm like I have examples from every single, it feels like every month for the last 10 years. And I don't even know where to go from this. Like, if we can't consistently say that this is obviously bad, I don't know. I totally understand why some people are like, I'm not gonna comment on a TikToker who's making some egregious statement. Now, I hope I'm a little bit more good faith, and I hope that people around me are a little bit more good faith, and we will decry them regardless of how other people are acting. Yeah. But it does feel like a non-starter when the president of the United States, like our representative, like who leads us, who we've said is the leader of our world, engages in this kind of rhetoric, and it's just example after example.
I think perfectly said, and I think you touched on one of the points I want to make, which was it's not that when we bring this up, it's to go, well, what about this? Because I've seen ever since Kirk's assassination, your rhetoric and your moral clarity on calling out whoever needs to be called out in gross or further inflammatory rhetoric, even however influential or not they are. And I've tried to do the same thing. And so it's more about saying, all right, we are agreeing to hold ourselves to that principle. Not everybody, but we are. And it's so disheartening, and it feels kind of like we're just screaming into a void if the most powerful people, especially, I have to say it, in terms of people in positions of power on the Republican side, are not willing to take their step in that correct direction. Because this is a big distinguishment. Unless I've missed, my standard in placing people in positions of authority in a higher position in my mind and thus hold them to a higher standard is something I apply to Democrats as well. I just haven't seen super powerful, influential elected Democrats make light of Kirk's assassination or violence against Trump in the way that I've seen elected Republicans about Democrats. I mean, you have the Melissa Hortman example, and it was like Trump didn't even know who that was, even though it was a big supporter of his who murdered her. And then the Pelosi example. And then now this, and it can sound, I think, to MAGA ears like we're going, well, why should we care if you don't care? Which is not what I'm saying. I'm going to care regardless.
No, we're saying we care. Yeah.
Go for it.
And no. That's exactly the point. Because I don't see any Democratic lawmaker. I have to think of like an attorney general from Virginia. I think it was Jay Jones who said some pretty egregious comment. That's the only example that I could possibly think of. And he literally wasn't even in power. Like he recently had his election after he made the statement. And whatever, I thought what he said was horrible.
Same.
I thought, and I'll say it again. I thought what he said was horrible. but he's the only example that I could possibly think of, and that's the only thing I know about Jay Jones. Like, I know a million things about Donald Trump, and 100 of them are the horrible things that he said to other people.
Yeah. And whenever that happened with Jay Jones, we did a segment on it, and I said, this is horrible. This is unequivocally. Yeah. And to your point, he wasn't yet empowered, then got into power, had to publicly apologize for it. Haven't seen Trump apologize for the things he's doing. And I was actually, sometimes I don't know how it could be possible that Trump could surprise me, because it feels like we've seen everything. But I have to be honest, the whole sedition punishable by death wording that he sent out about elected Democrats, and just the reaction from numbed out, spineless Republicans going on shows and being like, I don't know. No, I don't. Yeah, I guess it's just really bad what the Democrat, like, really the president just called for the death.
Or they'll like take his word and go, yes, sir. And like, you know, start aggressing on these seditious six, right, is what they call them. And I don't even know what to say necessarily, but it's just, I don't know. I look at his rhetoric specifically about the sedition. I don't know. I think I understand being numbed out. Right? Like, in some ways, very much so, I am numbed out. It's been 10 years of Trump, and he consistently says these things. But I also I have to tell myself consistently, I refuse to be numbed by these comments. Because if I'm numbed, then that's essentially him winning, right? That's essentially him being able to get away with saying these horrific things time and time and time and time and time again. And we all just go, yeah, well, that's Donald Trump. That's just what he does. Right. And I think that we have to remind ourselves that is not what politicians are supposed to be doing. That's not a normal state of America. This isn't normal. And I know we say that over and over and over again, but like, we need to keep saying that over and over and over again. And I kind of refuse to not have this conversation every time he does something crazy, because I can't let our democracy come to a point where we just go, yeah, well, that's just the president of the United States. Sometimes he goes on a rant about some random celebrity that dissed him once, and he'll say that he died in a tragic and pretty gruesome murder because he hated the president too much. Like, it genuinely, I was talking to my dad last night, and he's a big Rob Reiner fan. He was actually, I've never heard of Rob Reiner, and my dad was like, who raised you? I'm like, you did, dummy. Like, what? Like, don't get mad at me for not knowing who this guy is. But my dad was really like sick. Like, he really felt it. And I think I need people to feel that way. Right. Or maybe I need to feel that way, or I need to expect that people will feel that way, or I need to know that people will feel that way, that they read these tweets and they go, oh man, like, I feel gross about who is in power right now. Like, is this really, we look around and we're like, is this really who we're claiming is leading us? And another thing is, I even understand. I think I put a little bit of grace in the question. I'm not saying you have to condemn Donald Trump. I will even accept you saying, look, I don't like his rhetoric, but I think he's a better president. I like what he's doing politically. And then maybe we can pivot to that conversation. But like, the fact you can't even get there to say, I don't like what he's saying, I'm really glad that I asked the question, because I think everyone saw Erika being completely unable to say, no, it's bad when the president of the United States says that we should hang 6 Democratic lawmakers. Yeah.
And the other element of this that I could just go on that topic forever, but I'm going to try to transition a little bit. Because the other element that I've been curious to see occasionally, when either the initial discussions of you being the last person debating Kirk, or you debating him while he was shot, and then this clip of you discussing with Erika Kirk that topic, I was always shocked to see a lot of right-wing accounts mad at you. And like, here's an example, a really big one, Jack Posobiec saying CBS just had Hunter Kozak appear at the Erika Kirk town hall and ask her to condemn Trump's rhetoric. Excuse me. This is the leftist who asked Charlie his last question in Utah. He never even said sorry for your loss. And I saw other posts to that effect, like divisive, unhelpful. unoriginal do better about you being a planted, scripted choice.
Yeah,
And
I mean,
I wanted to have your reaction to that.
yeah, I mean, the conspiracies are always there. Like, those are always kind of easy to ignore, because it feels like it's just the most deranged people possible. But Jack Posobiec saying, you didn't even say sorry for your loss. I don't know. I saw that tweet, and I think I know I should just go, okay, obviously he's acting in bad faith, right? But I did sit with that. I'm like, I do kind of regret not saying I'm sorry for your loss, because I am sorry for your loss. But I also wonder, in the alternate timeline, when I say I'm sorry for your loss, would Jack Posobiec just find a different thing that I said to be wrong?
Oh yeah,
you know,
of course.
Like I wonder how much gratitude I'm giving them, or how much good faith I'm giving them, when I'm like, oh, well, I just need to do this one thing, and then maybe you can then you can condemn Trump.
Yeah,
but it
right.
doesn't feel like it feels like the shit hits the fan over and over and over and over again. And I'm like, okay, well, at this point, you have to say that this isn't okay. And it just never really seems to hit that
jump in
point.
quickly to say that, first of all, you're so correct to identify someone like Jack. He found that to take issue with. It would have been something else. Just the fact that you asked about Trump is what is going to cause them to be upset, because they don't want to contend with, maybe they do have to look a little bit introspectively or at their leaders, a part of their movement. But I do just want to say to any of those, in case any of those types of people were watching, I get that you've seen, because algorithmically this is going to be the most engaging thing to you, and you're going to be suggested it over and over, the most extreme examples of people on the quote unquote left, seemingly representing the left as people who don't care about political violence. And if you kept, like, if Jack went and looked at any of your content since that day, it's so clear that it's so much more than you're sorry for her loss. Like, you were truly devastated and sharing in pain for what happened. And so even in your question, I could hear a real deep empathy in you talking about what you did. And then you had to ask a question. It wasn't just you were getting up there to be like, hey, that was horrible.
Right.
You have to ask a question. And you, as someone who was debating him, so like, inherently, y'all were on the opposite sides of political issues, are uniquely positioned to say, here's where I think my side has gone wrong. Now let me pose to you, if, I'm wondering if you see where your side's going wrong. Right.
And yeah, just to follow this up, I don't know how much of a non sequitur this is, but I have seen a number of conservative pundits also, ask the question, why did I even ask a question about Donald Trump to Erika Kirk? Like, she's a grieving widow. And to that I say, like, well, first off, fair question. Like, I do think that that's something that should be addressed. I do think I came in there pretty carefully, because I've been pretty selective about the interviews that I've been doing. I've been pretty selective about what specifically I've been asking. But how this was positioned, and I do think how this should have gone, this is a town hall, right, of the head of TPUSA. And I do think that she deserves our respect for having a grieving widow, but also she is standing up to say, I am the new face of the largest conservative organization in America. Yeah. And I think that part of that respect that she deserves is to say, oh, okay, well then, if that's where you want to go, I'm happy to meet you there, right? Like, I'm devastated by what happened. You are even more devastated by what happened. But let's meet. If you're saying that you want to be the head of Turning Point, then we're going to have to tackle some hard issues. And if you want to go to a town hall and you want to engage with people who are concerned about what your husband said, there are a number of things that have been he said some pretty disturbing things. Like, if you want to tackle that, then we'll need to tackle it. Like, I don't think you get to have your cake and eat it too, where you go on the book tour, you're head of TPUSA, and every interview that you do, you just go, hey, look, my husband was murdered. If you want to say, I need to be with my family right now. Yeah. I need to go home, and I need to sit with what happened, and I can't be where the cameras are. I can't go on tour. I need to sit and let someone else take over. I'll let Jack Posobiec take over, or a number of different people in Turning Point. Who knows? That would be so fair. I would never be going to her house and asking her this question.
Yeah.
I think this was offered as a town hall to have these types of questions in the spirit of what Charlie wanted, like, or at least purported to want, right? That like he believed in this marketplace of ideas. He believed that we need to have these types of conversations. And I think I'm believing Charlie when he says that. And I'm believing Erika when she says the same thing. And it feels sometimes like a slap in the face when it's like, hey, let's have these conversations. I go to have the conversations, and then everyone gets on my ass for having the conversations.
Right.
I don't know. It feels so like I get like this whiplash of like, damn, why did I believe that you guys were acting in good faith? Why did I believe that we could have a conversation about this? And, you know, obviously in the if you ask me deeply, like right before I went, what kind of answer are you expecting? It was the answer that I got. But I still had that hope that Erika would say, no, like, look, I appreciate, like, here, I would have loved if Erika gave a response like this. And I think everyone would have understood it. Like, hey, Donald Trump was a close friend of my husband. I disagree with a lot of things that he says, but he was also there for me when I needed it. And he was the president, and he helped facilitate the memorial. And I don't have to agree with everything that he says. And you know what? I'm pretty horrified by the things that he says. But I also think that he's the president that I believe in, and it's the president that I unfortunately have to stand by. And I'm not. That doesn't mean I have to stand by everything that he says. You know, she could have said something like that, and I would have been like, fair enough. At least we can meet in the middle and go, this isn't okay what he's saying. And then we can start tackling the political issues. But it feels like a non-starter when we can't even get there.
Yes. Wow. I've heard a lot of people try to explain some of what you just did, and none of them as effectively, that really solidified it for me, because I've been struggling with that too in covering Erika. Is like, you have on this one hand, not everyone feels this way, but I do, an extra sensitivity because of who she is and what she just experienced.
Yeah.
And so then I'm like almost really sensitive to when I get the feedback of like, why are you criticizing or covering in this manner a grieving widow? I'm like, oh, well, you're right. My heart aches. But then I'm thinking, hold up. If Turning Point's this massively powerful organization and she's touring, encouraging people to ask her questions, a town hall, literally.
Yeah, no, like,
how could it
I don't know
possibly
if
be
people know
wrong?
what a town hall is. Like, I don't, like, and that's how it was. CBS was like, we're doing a town hall with Erika Kirk. I'm like, okay, I've seen town halls before. I know how these function. Like, a politician gets up there. I've said some controversial things. We'll get some of my supporters, some of my detractors. We're all going to have a conversation, and I'm going to address some of the controversy that's going around about me. Like, but I felt like I got there, and I don't know, there was a weird vibe to it for sure. I wasn't expecting how evangelical it all was. I don't think it aired, but like Matthew West, like the Christian rock artist, like opened for the town hall, which felt very weird at like CBS. It was like just this like songs about Jesus, and like I feel like every question was about Jesus except for mine and like maybe one other. I don't know. I don't know. I feel like I don't know if this is too critical of Erika, but sometimes it feels like I don't know if she knows what she just inherited, right? That like she wants maybe like an evangelical Christian organization, but I think Turning Point was something more than that. And like I say this very critical of Turning Point, very critical of something that Charlie set up, but also like I respect the fuck out of what he built, right? Like he built something pretty. Like something I'm jealous of on the left. Like I wish that we could have an organization like Turning Point. And I don't know. It was a very weird. I don't know how else to say it. It was just very weird.
Yeah, seemed like it. Well, kudos to you. I think that you've again demonstrated a lot of moral clarity in a world that feels like that's not normal, and there's not much of that. And I've appreciated it. And I am sorry for everything that you've experienced over the last few months, being there, and then from all different directions, people finding reasons to nitpick you and harass you. And through it all, you've been really a steady voice. And I respect that. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. And sorry, I just want to, I really do want to say this before I go. Like, I really do feel for people who are close to Charlie, and like political violence is horrific. and I'm horrified by it. And seeing it up close, like I know I'm not the biggest victim out of all of it. Obviously Charlie, obviously his family, obviously his kids. Like I have 2 kids, and I would be like, sometimes that really breaks me a little bit, is that idea that that's possible, that could happen. And I want to fight. I want to fight that and prevent that as much as I possibly can. And my heart really does go out to Erika. Like that's a horrific thing that she experienced, and I hope that she's okay, and I hope her kids are okay.
Well said. Thanks, Hunter.
Absolutely.